Welcome to MoonShooting, a podcast about using your power to achieve your dream, reconnecting to your passion, and the money to get you there. In MoonShooting, your dream is not about what you create or what you achieve. It's about you. You are the brand. You are the dream. You are the moonshot.
What does everybody want? Power. In their relationships, in their social circles, in business, and over their creations, and in their life. You are somewhere on the spectrum of being either powerless or powerful. In these next 5 episodes, we will focus on the power of you and how you use it to either build a powerful or powerless life, no matter what path you're on.
In this episode, we make the assertion how your work ethic or your toxic productivity keeps you powerless. Powerful people focus on building the value of their own brand rather than working on someone else's. Hello, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You did a great intro. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Especially with my Regina George neck situation today.
Oh my God. The whole episode is about toxic productivity, and it literally causes you to have body pain.
Yeah. So
I knew what that was like. When I was 33, it hit my stomach.
Oh, no.
Gave me the ulcers.
Yeah.
Keep it all in. You're working hard. You're trying to make it.
Totally.
Awful.
This is one of the biggest, most painful life lessons that I've experienced, but we were just talking before we started about how there are many teachers in life, and I'm like, whatever this lesson is, whatever this teacher that I'm, gaining insight through these experiences, it's a painful one. I'm really noticing how overworking myself, toxic productivity is actually physically, creating pain in my body. And so I've had a lot of neck issues, and it's really just flaring up recently. And then this has been the 3rd time in the past couple months that I've pulled a muscle in my neck, and so I can barely move my neck today. But
I'm just the kind of person that causes physical pain. It's so tough.
No. Mark's the greatest. He does it. It is not.
So
No. It is me that puts the pressure on myself, I think I've realized.
So this segment is called
From
the Mind of Mod.
Oh, yes. From the Mind of Mod.
So we have these segments now.
Yeah.
I'm going to use them. And from the Mind of Mod, refresh everybody, or I can.
Yeah,
refresh
everybody.
The Mind of Mod is stuff that I've thought about for years. And I make these assertions about things. And you made the intro, and we're going to talk about that assertion, how I derive that, how I came to that. And again, this is from someone like me, from the Mind of Mod. My mind is how I observe things. I'm an observer all my life, and I observe data, I observe things, and I come to conclusions about stuff. Assertions, not facts, not opinions, just an assertion from a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I see that's relevant now, and it's getting more relevant every day, everyone says work smarter, not harder. Okay, that's cool. Of course, you should work smarter, not harder. But we're going to add a twist to that. So what you want to do is you want to work smarter, but you want to work more on value versus productivity, right? You don't want to be productive producing things for other people. You want to be producing valuable things for yourself. And even if you're actually working for other people, it needs to be what I'm calling valuable versus productive. Doing the same thing over and over again, that's okay. You can be more efficient about building a car, but if you come up with a new way to take out in the car building process, you take out one of the steps, that's valuable. And if you sit back and focus on those things, that's going to create your brand. That's going to create value for you. And, there's a show out right now called The Silo. We talk about the matrix. So being productive and producing for other people is like you're in the matrix in this new TV series that's out. I think it's Apple. And it's this silo where everybody in the silo it's like the class structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's underground or something. And it's like, people don't know how they're there, and if they go outside, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's like, you find out that it's like, that's not really the case, but they're keeping people afraid. So that's like us. You got to have a job. You got to be productive. You got to work harder and harder and harder. And of course, we're all like physical bodies out of whack. Spiritually, we're out of whack. And emotionally, we're out of whack. And so if you can focus on the value, that's super important. So that's from the mind of Maud.
It's an interesting concept. It's about value and where you place that. So to put it into some context, what's kind of an example of what you're talking about?
I'll give you an example because I love movies of a movie, and then I'll give you a real life example from my experiences, right? So the movie Jerry Maguire is about that, and it's actually about a real life agent, Lee Steinberg, I think, where in the movie, Tom Cruise, at a seminar for his agency, a talent agency, or, their agents, gets this bright idea that we should have less clients and give them more value, we would make more money. And of course, he's fired for that. And then he goes on a series of, soul-searching things, loses his girlfriend, connects with Renee Zellweger, but she's not really his idea of the kind of fast-paced life he's led, and then he ends up with her. But the funny thing is, at the end of the day, he just gets down to one client, and he kills for that client, and that client ends up creating such value for him that it creates a career.
Right.
Now, so slowing down, you can actually slow down to do more. And in Kesby's world coming up, we'll talk about how we had to slow down a little bit to go faster or to create more value. Right. So in my world, I've done several things where I was contrary to what people think in raising capital for my first company. People say, well, you got to go out, and I raise capital for other people. You have to go out and you have to have lots of meetings. That's the one standard in sales. Lots of meetings, lots of pipeline meeting. No. You could be doing that over and over again, right? Tiger Woods talks about 10,000 hours of doing something, but in those 10,000 hours, they talk about, for expertise, how you use those hours, how valuable the things you're doing in that, not just doing the exact same thing everybody else is doing, because that doesn't create the differential in you, right?
Right.
So for me, the first time I got funded, I had one meeting, got funded.
Whoa.
One meeting. And it was actually on a golf course where I actually butted in to another threesome, and I started talking incessantly about what I was doing versus what they were doing. And one of the guys liked it, and I kept telling them that what they were doing, they should sell the company, and, open my big mouth. And the guy says, well, who are you? And I was like, oh, I've got a lot of these startups, and it's really cool. And I was building an accelerator at the time, and I didn't know it. He was like, that's really cool. And I got through $1 million.
Wow.
Out of being on the golf course, had one meeting. We had just finished the business plan. Boom, that was it.
Cool.
Now with my daughter, who in California, she was in college, and she was also really worried about sending out resumes. Oh, you got to send out resumes, blah, blah, blah. But she's in the field that you're in, essentially. She wanted to go to LA. She was in Virginia, and all the other kids are getting jobs because they're all Deloitte. And they're all the people that come.
Sure.
Well, Hollywood's not coming to UVA. And a lot of these jobs in media, stuff like this, you have to figure out a way to do it. So I worked with her, and I said, hey, we have to do it differently. We're going to, she goes, well, I have this one opportunity where I can, a guy that I know works for one of these big agencies in LA. He actually worked in New York, and he can give me a in, and I can, get an interview at one of them. So she sends in the email, and the people are like, oh, that's great. Everyone comes in June, and then they start working in September in the summertime. They go, we're in Virginia. They're going to be hiring people from USC and UCLA. You need to first say, I'm going there. You need to commit.
Right.
And then when we go there, you need to email them and say, hey, I'm going to be in LA. While I'm there, I want to, meet. She didn't say she had tons of meetings. She said, I'm going to be in LA for meetings. But we were expecting to get others, but that was the only one we had.
Yeah.
We went there and she got the job.
Wow.
Because she did it before everybody else. She did it contrary, and she just focused on being valuable. And we spent all the time figuring out how can we be the best we can be at this.
Right.
Right. So that's happened to me time and time again. So, and I'm sure there's lots of people that has happened to. So think about what you want. Think about not how many hours it takes to do it, or how to do it the way everyone else does it. So the one thing I told her, which I did myself when I was on the golf course, I was myself. As obnoxious as I was myself. I talked about my clients. I talked about how passionate I was for startups. Talked about all the startups I was working with, and that's what did it. I had one person hear me go, oh my God. The other two guys could care less. I was annoying. Stephanie as well, super passionate. I said before she went to her interview, I said, hey, what did they tell you at college? Oh, you got to do it this way. I go, no. You're going to go in there and you're a very type A person and you're very this and that. You got to tell them exactly who you are. You got to go in with exactly who you are and just emphasize who you are, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she went in there and the two people she was interviewing with were women just like her.
Oh, cool.
Very type A, very strong.
Yeah.
And then she got it. She didn't try to game it.
Mm-hmm.
She just, who are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So when we're talking about this notion of toxic productivity, what's valuable? The most valuable thing is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
How you create value is don't try to do a lot, try to do less.
Yeah.
Right? But in being smarter, be more valuable, not more productive.
Yes, totally. And I think that's kind of a perfect transition into
Absolutely
Kespi's world.
Kespi's world.
How this connects to me, to
Absolutely
anyone going through similar, in a similar place in life.
Right.
And yeah, it's definitely been a process of unlearning and relearning for me. How it relates to us personally is,
and you had a good college story too.
Oh yes, that's right. Right. Yeah. So I'll give two stories.
Right.
So the story in college was, I think it was our exam for justice studies. It was like an essay exam where she would give the prompt like one day, and then you'd have a certain amount of time to write the paper, and then you submit your paper, and that's like your final exam.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like kind of like a wild situation, but not good for someone that's like an overworker like me, because I will literally use every second that I have to my detriment to make it as quote perfect, even though there's no such thing as perfect, as it could be. So yeah, I think it was maybe like we have 48 hours, and I took every minute of the 48 hours, and this is like, don't try this at home, because basically I didn't sleep for 48 hours. I stayed in the library just like eating snacks as sustenance and like coffee, caffeine, whatever. I think the adrenaline, whatever it was, allowed me to just, I don't know, like when I get into that zone, it's just like, I was just in that zone, and it was really awful, but I just kept pushing past every signal my body was telling me to stop. I don't know why, but it just, yeah, it was awful. So anyway, submitted it. I was a zombie, obviously, by the end of it. But when I was like walking to my class, like after that 48-hour non-sleep spree, like I noticed my like legs were not working properly, as one would expect, but it really freaked me out. Right. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. And I never have done it again. Right. So it proved that. And for what? Like, I'm sure I probably got an A on the paper, but like what?
Yeah, half the time you would have gotten an A too.
Yeah. But you know what? I would have been fine if I got a B.
Right. Who cares? Right.
Spoiler alert, I also would have been just fine even if I got a C. Was it worth it? Was it worth it to put my body for what? Just this idea of.
So you weren't creating any value for yourself. You were just working to be productive. And thinking part of your body was in autopilot, we talked about before, thinking you needed an A because you're used to getting A's to get in college.
Yeah.
When you get college, you don't need to get A's unless you're trying to be a doctor. You need to get
into a secondary situation.
Yeah. People don't need that.
Yeah, I know.
Be competent at it, right?
Totally. And no one told me that. I'm pretty sure I was already doing well in the class.
Right.
It just goes to show, like, once you get into that mindset, it's just like a productivity blindness. You have blinders on, and you're almost like you're just trying to be productive for the sake of it. Like, and that was a big wake up call for me.
You need, and this is going to be great, you need to have a two-step mindset thing. You need to think, how can I be valuable for me? Mm-hmm. And then how can I stop being what we call productive?
Mm-hmm.
Stop being what most people call productive or having this work ethic or toxic.
Yeah.
Right? And at the very end of this, I'll explain that, how you flip that. But you need to stop doing that. I'll set up your story a little bit.
Yeah.
We met, you become my podcast producer, and we really had more of a time contract, not a production contract. We don't know how fast we could do stuff. But then you were like working like we had a production.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hey, the time, we're not doing the right time, and this is out of whack because you're doing everything. You're writing it, you're editing it, you're setting it up, and you're putting so much pressure on yourself. And when you're editing it, it's keep pushing you. And then you have this number of episodes you need to get out. And I never committed to anything.
Yeah.
Right?
You weren't like, here are my expectations.
Yeah.
I just,
and at one point I said, stop, because the worst thing is we weren't actually being collegial anymore. We weren't working together. It was like you working your ass off. It wasn't good for me because I wasn't part of the process. And I thought we weren't producing as fast as we could have. We got through a few episodes, which everyone I'm sure loves, and you needed to do that. Now we need to think about how do we do the two-step mindset, which is how do we create value for each of us, right? And how do we stop being productive but be more valuable?
Totally.
Right. So what we came up with, which was interesting, I looked and I said, because I like solving problems, and I was like, wait a second, where there's this book called The Goal, you have to find what they call the slow boy, right? So in whatever process you're going, there's something that's so slow and stopping you, but you can never go faster than that thing. So we knew
something weighing you down.
We knew that the editing process was taking up way too much time, but the editing process wasn't the problem. Is that we were filming too much and we were filming too chaotically, and we were filming too chaotically because you were trying to write the episodes and you're trying to write what's in my head for the last 30 years. I'm going to say, wait a second.
Yeah.
Let me write it. And then when I was writing it, I go, let me segmentize it, because we're talking about segments now. Let's have an intro. Let's do all these things like it's a TV series or something. Let's segment it.
Yeah.
When you write it, then that's going to put you in the process of being the editor of the content, and then takes you above it instead of doing it and editing it. So I didn't do it and then see if it's great. And so I was writing it. And then the last episode we did, we filmed, instead of taking 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever to do everything, filming an hour and a half, and then you having to cut the crap out of it like it's a movie.
Yeah, totally.
We got down to we did an hour and a half, and we got down to 30 or 40 minutes, and it's all segmentized so you can cut it and move it around.
Yeah.
So we solved the problem that way by looking at how could we be more valuable? How could I make you more valuable with what you're really good at? You're really good at seeing the head and seeing how we should do this, not just editing it, but you had to edit it, right? I'm really good at knowing what the hell's inside my head. And so we've come to this. So we're going to do more episodes, do it faster, and then make ourselves more what other people might think is productive, but I think it's more valuable. We're going to create more value in less time. And that's going to give us an opportunity to spend a lot more time thinking about where we're going.
Yeah, that was a really cool learning experience for me and for us, because it really got me thinking about that concept. I got caught into that toxic productivity mindset again.
Right.
And it was less about me being honest about where I knew that I could give the most value, and more about oh, look, I can do it all. I can do this. Watch, edit, like you just said, the conceptualizing, the editing, the writing. Oh, I did the theme music of it, right. And the logos,
the graphics,
the social media. I mean, everything from start to finish. And I think in the mindset of that is I have to do it all. I have to wear all the hats.
Right.
And thinking that me telling you, hey, me actually trying to do all of this is more time consuming and, making it take longer.
Right.
Right. So but it was a scary thing to talk about, because God forbid, I would suggest being quote less productive
or less perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That fake means of what perfect
not
is. Not
being your authentic self.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I think you were the one that brought it up, because, I'm learning, and this again is a major step for me to think about that, that possibly you can cut some stuff out. It's not about the productivity, but the value in what you do.
Yeah. Stop serving me and what you think I want. Exactly. First, find out what the hell I want. And second of all, stop serving me. Serve your passion, because I liked what you caught onto my passion, what this thing could be. Your passion needs to come out in all the things we do in this, and your passion can't come out if you're just serving me, or you were just serving the master of making it perfect and putting hours into the editing and trying to we talked about it it was a ball of string, and you were trying to untangle it.
Yeah.
Let's not create a ball of string.
Yeah.
That's all effed up.
Yeah. Let's just make some small geographic puzzle pieces that are just easy.
Right.
Modular.
Right. So this actually dovetails into our next segment called Law and Disorder, where I give my rules, and a lot of the rules are the same, but have little twists to them, to the rules, because one of the shows we talked about was Ted Lasso, and we did a total football move.
Yeah.
We had to figure out, and this is the book, the goal, where you have to, sometimes it's like one or two moves, like a move in chess, like Queen's Gambit. There's one or two moves that will solve everything, right? But if you're busy doing the exact same thing over and over again, or if you're busy not sitting back from it and say, hey, where is the actual real problem?
It's like, what's dragging you down?
Well, it's like when you're sick too. It's like, hey, I'm sick because my stomach hurts all the time, and then no one ever asks you, well, what are you eating? Like, or what are you, like, or are you stressed out?
Totally.
They just fix the problem. They don't fix the symptom, right? Like, what's the thing that's the biggest problem? And we knew that you were trying to do it all. And we sat down and, what are you great at? What am I great at?
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we're both great at. Do the things we're great at.
Yeah.
And then see how faster that goes.
And we can put more value into our time. Like, I always think of the word concentration.
Right.
Like, our value might be concentrated into even less hours, but if it's a more concentrated value, then great. If you can concentrate it into less, then you can do more if you're focusing on the value.
So transitioning to law and disorder, which is these things that I have sort of hard, fast rules on, or rules that a lot of people have. The old 80-20 rule comes back into play again. So everybody knows that 20% of your time creates 80% of the value. Most people have agreed to that. It's the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
Right? But what they don't focus on is, people all focus on, that 20%. How do I get to the 20%? When is that 20%? Well, you can't get to it, or it can't be valuable if the 80% is filled with useless activities, if it's filled with meetings and emails, the stuff we talked about. Your job is to take 80% of your time should be spent on curating that 20%.
Interesting.
Now you're thinking, what do you mean by curating? What does 80% mean by curating that 20%?
Yeah, because I'm like, is it planning? And what about this boring stuff that you just have to do?
Right. So you want to minimize as much as that you can, or put it off. And sometimes you've got to think, there's some things that you don't need to do. You think you need to do it. So let them go. Like, there's emails I've never gotten back to, just because if they don't get back to me, then it wasn't important.
Okay.
Not everything is that important, right?
Or time-based. Like, you don't have to spend so much time. You can decide what time you want to dedicate to that stuff. But if you let it live in your head, it's definitely going to impact the time you want to spend on that 20%.
Yeah. So let me give you some examples of that.
Yeah.
Right? Of how I help people. Like, a lot of the icons will tell you they do a lot of meditation work. It's how much they eat. So we're talking about the things that are most important are your health, your mental health, your physical health, right? Spending time on that, spending time with joy. So the other 80% really has to be about, how do I get to that 20% that really is my passion, that really is the time at which that I
shine,
right?
You need to use that 80% to curate the 20%. So what do you mean by that? And maybe what's an example?
So I'll give you an example. I was a CFO at a company, and the CEO, and this is a venture-backed company, and we were very successful. And the CEO was an airborne ranger. He was like a really good sales guy at Sun Microsystems and a bunch of other companies. He was highly sought after. But again, he came from a military background. And so his father did tours in Vietnam. He, again, was an airborne ranger, which you have to go through a lot to get that. And he was actually really disciplined about putting a day's worth of work in. When I got there and I was working for him, which was the second time I worked for him, at one point I just came to him because he goes, what's next? What are we doing? I go, the more you spend on creating opportunities, the more problems you're creating for us and for me. And I gave him a little 2x2 matrix, which could be helpful to people, Okay. So I don't know if you know 2x2 matrix, but it's like there's 4 boxes.
Yeah.
Is it possible and is it valuable?
Oh.
So things that are not possible and not valuable down in the lower corner, don't ever do them.
Okay.
Right? Things that are possible but not valuable, don't do those.
Okay, so wait, let's visualize it for any of our listeners. So we have a box, right? It's a 2x2 grid.
2x2 grid, right?
So what's on top? Okay.
On the left is not possible or not probable and possible. Possible, not possible.
Possible and not possible. Then on the
bottom, you do it this way and this way.
Okay.
Right? On the X and Y axis. on the bottom is not valuable, valuable.
Okay.
So the top corner box is going to be the one everyone wants, which is valuable and possible.
Okay.
Right? Where people make the mistake is on the other two, everyone knows if it's not possible and not valuable, you don't do it.
Right. That's an easy.
That's an easy out. So it's easy. Those two are easy. Where people get crossed off on all the time, which is what we're talking about right now, when you curate at 80%, it's not what you do, it's sometimes what you don't do.
Mm.
And so there was one box that was possible, but not
valuable.
Those are the things we're getting screwed up on because he wanted to do things and I was going, that's not valuable. What do you mean it's not valuable? I said, let me tell you how that equates to valuation. If we do that, it doesn't increase our valuation. And he was like, oh, I didn't think of it that way because people don't think, can I get more revenue? Can I do this? Can I do that? No. Is it valuable? Does it increase our valuation? That's all we should care about.
Right.
The other one, which was, it's valuable, but it's hard to do. It's probably not possible.
Uh-huh.
Well, he was like an airborne ranger, so that their motto was like, the impossible just takes time. So I had to let him do a few of those things because it was valuable if we got them done. We wasted some time doing those things, but they were valuable, right? But I like, no, that's not going to be possible. But like, and every once in a while something would pop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like these two boxes over here, you do. So it's getting rid of the things that are going to waste your time. They're going to increase the amount of effort you're putting into something and not getting to that 20%. And they're going to frustrate you and irritate you, hurt your body, hurt your mind, hurt your stuff. So again, let's go back to the Jerry Maguire. He was like, less is more.
Right.
Doing less, well, it sounds like you're lazy. You got to be lazy if you're doing less.
Mm-hmm.
No. If you're creating value and that takes an hour versus 7 hours of somebody doing a useless job that has no value at all, right? It's like, no. Why would you do that? You would spend the hour. Like guys that code, people that write code.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm charging an hour for writing code, or I charge an hour for, law. Well, not all hours are the same.
Mm-hmm.
What's the value of it? So that's the hard part in anything. But if you think about your brand, you should be trying to do what's valuable for your brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should be doing less of the things that are productive but not valuable.
Got it.
So if we talk about, let's do the 2x2 matrix,
mm-hmm.
productive, non-productive, not valuable, valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
The top corner would be things that you can produce something that is valuable.
Or you mean possible?
No, even let's just go with the productivity because people aren't going to get off productivity,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can't get off productivity.
Oh, I like that. Okay,
right?
Yeah, let's
like you say you can't get off that. Like I got to work.
Okay.
Like
I love that.
Like productive and valuable is always what you want to do. So you could be doing what you think is productive things, but they're not valuable to you.
Mm-hmm.
Might be valuable to somebody else or valuable to nobody, but in your mind, they're productive.
You don't want to waste time on something that does not increase the valuation of a company, right? So that's an easy concept to think about. So I think the hard part, which is what we're doing now, is translating that into your personal, not a company, but you as a person, right?
It's a brand, right?
Which really kind of transitions us into the last part of our episode is how do all of these concepts apply to someone else's moonshot dream?
Right. Start playing the you game versus the they game.
Okay.
It's all a game. Think about you. I know it sounds selfish and narcissistic, blah, 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 but that's the people that are in charge are telling you that. No, it needs to be about you. Does this help you? Now, when you're providing a service, yes, you have to do the service. But if you're really creating the time to create value, you're going to actually be more valuable to anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is, going back to the last episode, is create the mindset that your power is not what you do, but who you are. I wanted to work with you because of your value creation,
mm-hmm.
not your problem solving.
Right.
Like I need.
Or my technical skills.
Right.
Yeah.
And you even knew that. You said that.
Yeah.
You always told me that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's editing.
Yeah.
But once I get into it, I'm
zoned in.
Yeah. You're in like the black hole.
100%, especially for a perfectionist. It can.
Right.
Oh yeah. It'll take its own.
Into the matrix or sucked into another dimension. Probably.
Definitely. Try talking to me if I'm editing. Like I'm not there.
Right.
I'm somewhere else. That's great because that transitions us to our next episode where we talk about how your system of value, which is given from this toxic patriarchy.
Definitely.
And how you can reframe that and how you can help shift out of that mindset. So it helps you. So
yes, again, we're all talking about power, and we're talking about the power construct, and the toxic patriarchy is going to be really interesting, leading from the toxic productivity into the toxic patriarchy value system.
Exactly. And how to reclaim that power for yourself, how to make yourself more powerful, your brand more powerful.
Yep.
The power of you.
Power of you. Your moonshot.
Love it.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, this has been Kristen Espinosa.
Mark Monica.
And this is MoonShooting Mission Control signing out.
Signing out.